one more presentation by Leonardo. So stage is yours.
Thanks. Hello, can you all hear me? Well, yes. So good afternoon, everyone. As you can see here, my name is Leonardo. Today I'm coming from Dublin. I'm very glad because it's my second year here. And today I'm trying to bring a different proposal for our session. It should be very interactive. Why the name La Casa de Scrum? It comes just from the money heist. I don't know if you watched the series, but it's just to get a theme. There's nothing with that. It's basically about Scrum. So what is the motivation of this talk? It's inspired on something that I saw Barry Overeem, perhaps some of you know, posting on the internet. And I used that idea with one of my teams at that time during a retrospective, where I brought some tricky things around Scrum, the implementation of Scrum or Scrum adoption, and we have very interesting discussions. Some people were happy, some people got very angry with that, but we had brilliant discussions, and that helped us out to mature as a team, and that's the proposal that I would like to bring here today. So the format's gonna be, we're gonna see later on, but you're gonna prioritize what we're gonna be talking about, or which items we're gonna discuss first, and after that, it's gonna be a quiz approach. So you all should have 2 stick notes, 1 red and 1 green. Does everyone have green, pink, something like that? I didn't have the same color, so it should be a green and another one. Does everyone have it? Okay, so a very quick review about Scrum. How many elements do we have in the Scrum framework? Does anyone know? Or is everyone familiar with Scrum, first of all? Familiar? How many elements do we have in Scrum framework? 5? Elements, if we see, they are divided in 3 groups, but all the elements that we have in Scrum. What are the 3 groups? That roles, rules, the events, the roles, and the artifacts. And how many in total of those 3 groups? It's about 11 elements. So first of all, what are the events that we have? I know that someone said ceremonies, but I'm going to use this Scrum guide terms, events. How many events do we have in Scrum? 4? It depends. So actually we have 5, because we have sprint planning, we have daily Scrum, we have sprint review, we have retrospective, but the sprint itself is also an event. What about the roles that we have? How many and which ones? 3, which ones? PO, Dev, and Scrum Master. And finally, the artifacts. What are the artifacts that we have in Scrum framework? Ta-da! Don't be afraid. So we have 3. The prod backlog, the sprint backlog, and also the increment that you're going to produce at the end of the sprint. It's also an artifact. And this is they were here in the background of the picture. And this is Scrum. This is a Scrum framework. And it's quite simple, isn't it? It's lightweight, quite simple. Is it easy to implement or to adopt? Perhaps not that simple. It's very hard to master. And that's what I would like to explore with you today and have good discussions. Let's see if that's going to work. Fingers crossed. It worked. Yes, it wasn't work for me. So we will need Mentimeter. Where is the code here? No, it's a different one, so it's mine. There we go. Please go to Mentimeter. How's it going to work now? I have 10 statements about Scrum here. Okay. And have you heard about the prioritization with dollars, dollar value with dollars? You have 100 points to prioritize in a matter of 10 points each. So I would like you to access Mentimeter, go through the statements right now. I will give you a minute or so, and point which ones would you like to discuss first. Which ones would like to say that's true or that's false and have a discussion about that. They may not be as simple or straightforward as you think. Perhaps there are some tricks, and the idea is this, that we're going to have discussions around that. So please go to Mentimeter. Let's take a minute to vote in which ones would like to discuss first. And after that, based on our prioritized list, we are using here the approach where we have a fixed time, the quality won't be negotiable, but our scope is going to be flexible depending on our discussions. So if you go to Mentimeter, you should be able to see these statements, and whenever you start adding points to the ones that you would like to. Yeah, and by the way, it's this code here, 586398, not this one right now. We're going to use this one for questions and feedback. Are you able to access this? Can you see on your mobile phones? Yes? So let's take a minute to prioritize whenever. Oops, we start showing up. I will give you a minute, and then we start off. So setting the timer, the time box, a minute. Another 30 seconds. Eu consigo ir voltar, não tem problema. 15 seconds. So time's up, folks. I will ask you to stop voting, otherwise the priorities will change. And then it's going to be a bit hard. So just finish off whoever is voting right now, and then we can take from there. Otherwise, it's going to be a bit of mess. So let's start off. The first one is at the sprint planning, the development team commits to the sprint backlog. So what we have here, just a second. It ended up being this one here. And now you have the 2 sticks notes, and we're going to play a game, a quiz. So at the sprint planning, we get together, the Scrum team gets together, the development teams. Whenever we finish the sprint planning, the development team will say, we are committing to this backlog. Of course, if I'm committing to this, this shouldn't change, or otherwise, how can I commit to that? In your opinion, is that true or is that false? Just don't be afraid. The intention here is to have a good discussions. We have like a pretty much half true and half false. Okay, folks, start a discussion. This is false. Okay, don't be. Why this is false? Even though at the beginning, when they wrote for the Scrum Guide first time, they were using the word commitment. They changed in the second or third version to commit the sprint backlog. That's not accurate. Actually, there are 2 important words in this sense for the sprint planning, which is commitment and forecast. And they are 2 different things. So by the end of the sprint planning, what are the 2 things, the 2 outcomes that we should have from the sprint planning? Sprint goal, correct? And what else? and the sprint backlog. Before I jumped into it, let's imagine one thing. We, as a group, we decided to go to a hiking today, okay? And then we are on the basement of a mountain, and we decided, okay, we come together, and our goal today is to be on the top of that mountain by the end of the day, and we're going to trace a plan. So our plan is to go to this way, cross those trees, use that path up there, and we believe that pretty much in 6 hours we can be on the top of the mountain, correct? And then we start walking up, and after 2 or 3 hours, whenever we cross those trees, we just find out that there's a lake in front of us that we couldn't see at the beginning. And perhaps we have to surround that lake, or we just saw a new path that's shorter and easier to go to the top of that mountain. What would you do? Would you change your plan and achieve what you want to achieve? Or are you going to keep crossing the lake and perhaps die because you had planned this at the beginning and perhaps you committed to that? What would you do? We would change. We wouldn't die. Why don't we do this in our sprints? And that's the purpose of commitment and forecast. So the commitment comes to the what in the sprint planning. And the what relates to what we want to achieve, the sprint goal. So the development team is going to commit to the sprint goal, that they believe that's feasible, they worked out with the product owner, and it is possible to achieve within this time box what we want to achieve. This gives us guidance, what we want. We want to be on the top of the mountain. How? We have a roughly idea. We have a plan for that. But perhaps it changes. The more information we get, the more context, the more we know, the more we adapt to it. And that's our commitment. However, we forecast how we're going to achieve that. And the forecast for us in the sprint planning is going to give the sprint backlog. It's our plan. How we intend to achieve that. There are many ways to achieve the top of the mountain, correct? Why we're going to use one if we find out there's a better way to go? Let's adapt, inspection, and adoption. That we should be in Scrum. Of course, we should negotiate with collaborate with the product owner. We can't, as a development team, change everything. It's a collaboration. Talk to perhaps we add new stores, perhaps we're going to remove, perhaps we're going to update ones. But let's collaborate with the product owner to achieve what we want to achieve. And be careful in terms of sprint goals, because a sprint goal that is delivered those 10 user stories is not a real good sprint goal. For those who don't know, Roman Pickler, I can provide the website later on. Roman Pickler, he has a very good template to help you out to craft sprint goals. I use that a lot. And if you don't have sprint goals for the team to commit to that, perhaps this is a function that we have to fix before. And that is the first one. And we go back to the next one. 3 questions need to be answered during the daily Scrum. What did I do yesterday? What will I do today? And do I see any impediment? Do you think that, is it true? Is it false? Just wait. 3, 2, 1. Raise that. A lot of greens. 1, 2. I want to count. 1, 2. Oh, changed. 2, 3, 4. Just 4 reds and a lot of greens. Come on, 4 reds. This is a big false. It's a big false, and I want to bring attention to you. Be careful with that. Really, really be careful. Why? Usually, if you imagine yourself answering 3 questions. What did I do yesterday? What am I going to do today? And is there any impediment? And if there's a person, like a Scrum Master or a manager or a lead in that group, that meeting becomes a status report meeting, usually. That's what I've seen the most. People are justifying what they've done and what they're going to do. And that's not the real purpose of the daily scrum. What is the real purpose of the daily scrum? I had a sprint goal, readjust, to know if it is impeding us of what? If anything, what? Impeding us from what? To achieve a goal. And that's the point. So if we go for sprint planning, we know what. And perhaps this is something that we're missing a lot in Scrum. We don't know what we want to achieve. We go just for the whole. But if you know what, and the team is there inspecting and adapting and say, okay, are we going towards of the goal? So be careful with that 3 questions. Another thing that the Scrum Guide added to the Scrum Guide was a more discussion-based. So we don't need necessarily to answer the 3 questions. We can also have a discussion-based. I particularly like to have like a big board in front of us from our teams, and we discuss how is our plan towards our goals. We have the sprint goal, we have the plan in front of us, and we focus on the plan, not on what people did. If you went to the doctor yesterday or you took time off, I don't believe that people want to know that in that meeting, unless you're doing a report, a status report. So it's towards what we want to achieve. However, if we use questions, just append what we are missing, the part of the questions that we are missing. So what I did yesterday, but that helped us, development team, to achieve our sprint goal, what I intend to do today that will move us forward, going up to the mountain, that will help to achieve what we want to achieve, and is there something blocking me or anyone that I can see to achieve what we want to achieve as a team? If it's been very hard to answer with this part of the question, perhaps, again, you need to review other things. Perhaps you need to work in having sprint goals. If you don't have sprint goals, it's something that you should be looking for. It's a dysfunction that we should fix for our teams. But really, be careful. My experience I've seen is if you use just the part of the questions, we are doing a status report. Careful with that. Please, don't throw things on me, like we have more of those. Okay, the next one we have here. As soon as my laptop works, it's frozen. So we have a plan B. What is it? It's the 3rd one, eh? Scrum Master should resolve team's conflict. Scrum Master should resolve, which one is this one? Here, 5. So let's choose. So we have a team, and there will be conflicts, and the Scrum Master should go there and talk to the person that caused the problem and solve it. Now we are going to the opposite, like we have a lot of false, a couple of truths. And this is a big false. Why do you think it's false? What does Scrum Master do if he can solve single conflicts? What I both said. So if you want to have self-organized teams, they should be able to solve their own problems, correct? So if they don't solve their own problems, they always go to mommy to decide, someone that they say, oh, you are right or you are wrong, you're going to split your team. You're going to have problems. You won't have a self-organized team. However, the Scrum Master role in this situation is very important. So we can definitely coach situations like that. Once I faced in one of my jobs a situation that there was one team member that was very hard to work with. His communication was not that effective, and the team started getting annoyed with that, and he was getting annoyed with the team because they were not buying his idea. They were not even considering his idea, but the reason was because they couldn't understand it properly. And what happened up to some point, one of the team members came to me and said, look, there's no way that we can work with that guy anymore, and you need to have a conversation, you need to solve this problem. And say, look, have you tried to talk to him? Was this an option? Say, no, look, I didn't talk to him. What I advise, look, if I go and do this, possibly it's going to be worse for our team. Why don't you try to go there and put yourself, support that? So perhaps, or look, whatever, Paul, we are facing here perhaps a problem of communication, or how could, I'm not able to understand exactly what's going on with the team, perhaps how could he improve that, or put himself in a situation that he could improve, he could help out. He did that. It was just before one of our retrospectives, and that retrospective was possibly the best retrospective we had with that team. And we really got good outcomes out of that. So the role of the Scrum Master is to help out the team to self-organize. It's not to solve their own problems. Have you ever heard about the levels of conflicts within the team? There are a few theories about that, but usually there are 5 levels of conflicts within teams. And one that I remember is problem solving, which is very good. People have different ideas, but they are focusing problem solving. Then there is some kind of a disagreement, context, crusade, and world war. Where the world war, it's literally they can see each other because there will be a fight. And as Scrum Masters, we have to be careful and look after what's going on. So if you see that something is increasing throughout that steps, you have to work out with the team, not solving, but working with them to just bring it to lower levels to the first or second level, which is very productive. Because different opinions are productive. So just do not leave to escalate too much, because then the only solution is literally to split those people involved in that. I just forgot the one. So it's a moment that we have conflicts and have to solve. So it's self-organization, basically, and using coaching for that. Do I have a pen? Just to be careful. Can I have a pen here? Okay. Thank you. Then we go to the next one. Teams conflicts, the third. Now the fourth. The teams, Scrum teams, working out of same backlog can have different definition of done. So if we are scaling Scrum, we have many Scrum teams, and those, 5 teams, they can have different definitions of done. Choose your option. Let's use in what it should be. True, false, we have a mix now, which is good. And I'm gonna, it depends. and I'm bringing it depends because I used this question with one of my teams, and they said true, but when we started discussing, it was for a wrong argument. And that's why what I brought, it depends. Okay? So if we have different teams, 5 Scrum teams working out the same backlog, we should have the same definition of done, correct? So the organization can define some guidelines, or if they don't have them, they can come up with their definition of done. But if we are working out of same product backlog items, when I say that this is done, it should be the same meaning when you say that that's done. So that's called transparency. We are raising transparency. But why did I say why depends? However, let's suppose in our definition of done, we have that we have to have unit test coverage in 85%. This is an agreement across all the teams. However, our team decided that for quality purpose, we want to increase this to 90% or 95% or something like that. So we can add something that's more stringent. So for high quality purpose, we can have a more stringent criteria. We can say okay, we have 85% of code coverage. No, I'm going to remove that. No, this we shouldn't, because this is going to affect transparency across the teams. So if you don't have a definition of done, you should be working with all the teams to create one. You can add new ones that become, for higher quality, become more stringent, but not removing items out of that definition of done. If you want to do so, they should be agreed across all the teams, and it shouldn't affect quality. Okay? This is number 4. 4? Yes. So then the next one, Scrum is an agile methodology. This is a good one. A lot of greens, some of reds. Yeah? This is something that I kind of freak out. Chris is here. We used to work in a company there in Dublin. And every time that I hear someone say, that's agile methodology or Scrum methodology, I kind of freak out. But I'm going to explain you why. Scrum is not a methodology. First of all, Scrum is a framework. So it is a Scrum guide. If you're going to do your certifications, Scrum certifications, mainly in scrum.org, the one that I know the most, there will be questions always referring to Scrum framework. It is a framework. But what is the difference between a methodology and a framework? So methodology usually implies in a set of procedures, a set of things if I follow that, I'm going to get an outcome, a predictable outcome. So methodology usually works in environments that are predictable. Is everyone from software development here? Is software development predictable? Or sorry, or not? Is it something similar? I didn't get you. Can you speak louder? Okay, we are. So, is our environment predictable? Can we predict in software development, like what we're going to deliver in 6 months? Nothing will change. We're going to get the value that we get. Things will happen exactly as we planned out. And this is going to happen. We estimate as a month, and we're going to deliver in a month, and this is a 5, and it's going to take like a size of 5. That doesn't happen, right? So we are trying to use, if I use the term methodologies, implies let's follow those procedures, those steps, and I'm going to get always the same outcome. And that's not what we have in our environment. And that's what Scrum comes as a framework, because it's based on empiricism. Empiricism is knowledge comes from experience. So I have an assumption, I put it in place, I inspect that, and based on that outcome, I've learned it, and I'm going to decide the next step. So a framework sets some boundaries and leave people within there to self-organize based on the outcomes. I just put this pitch here behind is, we can plan like, I'm pretty sure that the players, before the game, they plan out a lot of things. Oh, we should do this is our strategy, and so on. But whenever they start playing, if something goes against their strategy, something happens that they were not expecting, they have to adapt. But they have the rules in there. They have the boundaries where they couldn't do that. If we don't have boundaries in those rules, that small structure, which Scrum gives to us, that small and lightweight structure where we can self-organize, that's going to become an anarchy. So they can just get the ball for like a football, get the ball with the hands and throw into the goal, unless it's GAA in Ireland. So that's the main difference between framework and methodology. So Scrum is a framework. Agile is a mindset. Be careful using the word methodology. Methodology is very good for predictable environments. It doesn't mean that it's wrong or we shouldn't use. So if you have, for those who have heard about Cinefin framework. If you are in a complicated, in a simple environments, methodologies, procedures are very good, and we can have this in software. For example, the standards we have for testing or code quality, they land in this methodology. So be careful with that. Framework are good for unpredictable, methodology for predictable, but Scrum is a framework. Here, if apply methodologies in an unpredictable environment, we may have some blaming games that I'm pretty sure that you are very lucky and haven't seen that. Okay, then we have our 5 questions, so we have time, right? And the next one, sprint review is a demo meeting. So we go for a sprint review, and we're gonna demo what we've done. A lot of falses, a couple of yes. Give me a bit of opinion why it is a demo. It's more than a demo. The ones that said that no, why no? But yeah, agree. The ones that said no. Sometimes we are not able to demo something because perhaps it's a non-functional stuff. The demo, it's part of the sprint review. And I've seen people calling sprint demo. No, demo is just one part of the sprint review. And that happens. Sometimes it's hard to demo, but we somehow always can demo. But the idea of the sprint review, sorry, it's a false. It's part, the demo is part of the sprint review. The idea of the sprint review really is to bring stakeholder, POs, and the team together and collaborate. Feedback. It's not just to demo, but perhaps to talk about some problems that we had throughout the sprint, where some of the stakeholders in there can help out to solve. Perhaps it's a good opportunity. Another thing is, if we have a release plan, it's the time to update our target days, how we're getting on to those target days at release level. And I've seen a lot of development teams complain that, oh, they don't have their voice heard in requirements and so on. That's a good moment to talk about possible capabilities of things that we are doing, where we have the dev teams with nice ideas, we have stakeholders as well there. Why we don't collaborate and perhaps have new ideas for our product? And also, what you just mentioned, or I think over there, we have, how many of you go to this product backlog and adapt your product backlog for the next sprint based on those discussions, adding, removing, reordering stories in there? So it's much more than a demo. So the demo is the first step, but we have to bring this collaboration, feedback, and again, it's not something that I have also seen the teams being very reactive to feedback. If it is constructive, we should have this open door where we can give opinions, or people can give opinions about things that we've done, and collaborate together to do better, focused on value, not on blaming. If we are blaming people, we're focusing on people, oh, you've done this wrong, then there's a dysfunction also in our sprint review. It's collaboration, focus on value, very important. And then we go to our next one, which is did I miss one? Product owner needs to attend the sprint retrospective. So we have a product owner, and we need or we don't need product owner in our retrospectives. Decide over there, they said yes. All of them like green. Here there's a mix. Decided here is a no, we don't need him or her. Good mix as well. Who should attend a sprint retrospective? well, what is the purpose of the sprint retrospective? Is to where the Scrum teams get together and reflects upon people, process, tools, anything, and they come up with an experiment where they're going to try to put in place and improve as a team. What if this improvement or something that we realize that we need to improve, it affects the PO? Perhaps the way that PO creates his stories, or that, perhaps he could bring the customer closer to us. What would you do? How effective is going to be our sprint retrospective? So having the team together, it's quite important. I understand that there are some POs that are very busy and perhaps work with many teams, but we should be looking for alternatives where the PO could attend it. And one of the reasons that I've seen POs not attending the sprint retrospectives is because they don't see value on it. And I understand that. So perhaps we, and I put myself as a Scrum Master, we have to focus more on really get the benefits in a retrospective. I'm trying to bring different approaches and liberating structures, if you heard about that, some games and so on, and focus on facilitation, real facilitation, not just going there, what went well, what didn't went well, what do we need to change. People just throw some things in there and nothing happens. So I prefer to come up with one small little thing that we can put in place rather than just throwing little things over there, perhaps put it on Confluence, and that's it. So I'm pretty sure if they start seeing value on that meeting, they're going to start attending. So it's, again, rather than forcing, perhaps we have to see other things that are happening. We still have time for, I forgot. Sorry about that. And we have time for possibly one or two more, this was the 7th. Each sprint may be considered a project with no more than a month. This one here. So in Scrum, we have sprints, right? Iterations. And those iterations may be considered a project, but not more than a month for that project. 3, 2, 1. Again, we have half. Can I hear some opinions? Is it true, false? I can give you the answer. This is true. But why? Perhaps this was misled by the word project, right? When we hear project, no, project, there is nothing with Agile, Scrum, and project. What do we do when we have a project? When we say that a project is finished, what we've done usually? Some main things that happen when we say a project is done. What happened? We did a release. Accepted by the user stakeholders. We've come up with the requirements. We've done the analysis, design. We've developed. We've tested. We've deployed, integrated, deployed, and perhaps it's in production and users are using, right? What is the purpose of the increment at the end of the sprint? It's a potential releasable increment. It's something that I should be able to put in production if I, as a PO, decide to go. And usually, perhaps this doesn't happen. We don't see it as a project. Perhaps seeing sprints as a project would give us some basis that what we have to do within our sprints. And then it goes back to whoever was on Chris' talk. Perhaps we have to improve in all other sense in terms of DevOps to have capabilities to be in production every 2, 3 weeks or a month. But that's what we should be aiming to. This is our goal, what we want to achieve, and then we can come up with a plan how to achieve. The closest that we are to our goal, more benefits do we have. And do we know why? Do we know why is a month only? Max a month? Why do we have sprints of max a month? It's just one, not longer than a month. It's easier to build up to increment, as you said, easier to amend new pieces or less complexity. This is one of the things. The more we develop, the more complexity we are adding to our product. And the more bugs, more problems we're going to have. But what else? We have more things, more benefits out of that. Less confidence because it's too far and perhaps things will change throughout the time. What I'm doing, if it takes 3 or 4 months, perhaps it doesn't have any value in 3 or 4 months. So I'm going to validate just in 3 or 4 months, whereas I can do in a month or 2 and then get the feedback and adapt to that. And what about if I'm wrong? Our assumption, because everything is an assumption. We don't know until we put in production. What happens if I'm wrong? How much I'm losing? I'm losing maximum of a month. If I'm wrong, I've learned it, but I've reduced the how much money I'm going to lose for a month. I'm limiting my risk. Correct? If I'm doing 2 weeks, I've lost 2 weeks, not 6 months on a year. So this goes back to why we use iterations. It's one of the reasons. We have 3 minutes, is that right? 4 minutes. We can have one more or questions. Which one would you prefer? Would you like to discuss one of the things that I've brought? The next one would be the Scrum Master is not responsible to schedule meetings as well as needed to facilitate them. Where is it? The Scrum Master is not responsible. I will try to deliver in 1 minute and then we can finish up. Yes, no? This is false. He is responsible. Yeah, we have a lot of red ones. And ta-da! It's true. And I will explain why before. Just hold. I will explain why. I will explain why. Don't go too fast. What about self-organized teams? What if, as a Scrum Master, I'm being Scrum Master for a team for 3, 4, 5 years? Are they self-organized? If they need me? Perhaps. Yeah. So my ultimate goal as a Scrum Master is to become redundant. So the teams should need me less throughout the time. And that's my ultimate goal. They have to do it themselves without me. So I'm getting rid of myself, which is tricky, but that's what I'm doing. For those who know or who don't know, I would definitely advise to look this work from Barry over in, the instance of Scrum Master. It doesn't mean that we won't schedule meetings. It doesn't mean that we won't facilitate meetings. We will do. But throughout the time, the teams the more they get mature, the less they're going to need us, the more they will have to step and do the things. So we've commonly, as a Scrum Master, seen as someone that will book meetings, someone that will ensure that Scrum, the daily Scrum is in 15 minutes, they'll just shut up and we finished. And what about the goal of that meeting? The purpose is different. Or the team boss, someone that will just get the update and tell the manager, the admin, everyone, just Scrum Master should keep Jira updated. And if we need to change Jira, just talk to the Scrum Master. Perhaps we do this, but our goal should be in this side of the things. Someone that will be looking for removing impediments, someone that will be a facilitator whenever it's needed. The more they grasp the idea, understand the whys, the more they should do it. A change agent, a manager of the process, not of the people. Process, not people. A mentor or servant leader, a teacher, because if something is new, is bringing a new approach to the team, he's going to need to adapt his agile styling, which I can take pictures, and then I'll move to the next slide, just to finish in 30 seconds. Have you watched this film, Daniel-san, Karate Kid? So first of all, perhaps we work with teams teaching them. They have to learn about Scrum. The more they get that physical movement, the more they practice, the more they're going to understand. Then, here we are using practice, do this, and teaching why they should do. Whenever they grasp the idea of why, we perhaps become coaches. And we ask questions that will foster their imagination, their understanding. And whenever they understand the whys, we become advisors. And if they have doubts, they may come to us and ask opinions. And throughout the time, they're going to lead us less. And that's what should aim. It doesn't mean that it's a path that you don't come back. Let's suppose that at some point they are here, very mature, but they want to learn about Kanban, whatever. If they are new and you know about Kanban, you go back to here for Kanban. But until they understand the why and get the values and become advisor. So put yourself as you have to be redundant, and your teams shouldn't need you. And this will give you advice or idea of how to get rid of you. So they're going to be more self-organized. And it's pretty much that. Our challenges will change throughout the time. The more we work with the teams, the more challenges we're going to have, and we have to be constantly learning about Scrum and so on, and this will improve our environments. And that's pretty much it, folks. Thanks a lot. Sorry for the time.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
And please give your vote, submit your scores to our presenter.
If you want to discuss anything, I'm going to be around.
There was some